It was past midnight when the storm started. Rain hammered the windows of my small apartment like angry fists. I couldn't sleep, so I sat by the window with a cup of cold tea, watching lightning flash across the sky. My phone buzzed beside me. I didn't expect any message that late, maybe some spam or a weather alert. But when I picked it up and saw the name on the screen, my heart stopped. Tap like, subscribe and stay till the end. This one's close to my heart. It was from Ethan, my only son. I hadn't heard from him in months. The last time we spoke, his tone was cold, distant. But still, I hoped this message meant a change, a sign that he wanted to talk again. My fingers trembled as I opened it. "You're not my family. You can't come on our cruise." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I read it again and again, hoping I had misunderstood. The words were sharp, cruel, final. Lightning flashed outside, and the power went out, leaving me in the dark with just the glow of that message. My tears came without warning. I raised Ethan alone after his mother passed away when he was 12. We went through everything together: late-night homework, school projects, his first heartbreak, his first car. I gave him everything I could. I thought love and sacrifice were enough. But somewhere along the way, he drifted away. When he got married last year, I stood in the back row of the wedding hall, not beside him. His new wife, Claire, never liked me much. She thought I was too simple, too emotional, too much a reminder of his old life. I smiled through it all that day because that's what mothers do. We swallow our hurt for our children's happiness. But this message, this was different. It wasn't silence anymore. It was rejection. I sat there in the dark, hearing the storm howl like my own heart. I remembered how Ethan used to run to me during thunderstorms, hiding under my arm, whispering, "Mom, don't let the thunder get me." Now I wished he would come and hide again, just once. The next morning, I found the courage to text back. My fingers hovered over the screen for a long time before I wrote. "Ethan, I'm sorry if I ever hurt you. I only ever wanted to be there for you. Have a good trip." I didn't expect an answer. But an hour later, the phone buzzed again. I grabbed it fast, hope racing through me, only to see a single word. "Please don't." That was it. No explanation, no warmth, just a wall. I looked at the framed photo on the shelf, Ethan as a boy, with cake frosting on his cheeks, smiling at me with pure love. That little boy was gone now, replaced by someone who saw me as a burden. I tried to understand where I went wrong. Maybe I held on too tight after his father's death. Maybe I didn't let him grow the way he needed. Maybe Claire convinced him I didn't fit into their perfect world. Whatever the reason, the truth was clear. My son no longer saw me as his family. Days passed. The storm ended, but inside me it didn't. I watched their photos appear on social media. A shining white cruise ship, blue ocean, smiling faces. I wasn't in any of them. Still, I whispered a quiet prayer each night. For his safety, his joy, and maybe, someday, forgiveness. Because no matter what he says, I will always be his mother. And no storm, no text message, no cruel words can ever erase that truth. Even if he forgets, I will remember for both of us. I'm Linda Harper, 61 years old, retired school teacher, and a mother who once believed her love could fix anything. For most of my life, my world revolved around one person, my son, Ethan. When I held him for the first time, he was barely 6 pounds, his tiny fists clenched like he was ready to fight the world. His father, Robert, stood beside me, teary-eyed but proud. "He's got your nose," Robert said, grinning. I looked at our baby and whispered, "You'll never be alone, Ethan, I promise." That promise carried me through every storm that followed. When Ethan was 12, Robert died suddenly of a heart attack. It happened on a normal Tuesday morning. He went out for a jog and never came back. I remember the police officer at my door, his hat in his hands, his face heavy with pity. I remember Ethan standing behind me, clutching his baseball glove, asking, "Where, Dad?" I didn't know how to answer. I still don't know how I did. From that day, it was just the two of us. I went back to work earlier than I should have, teaching third graders by day and tutoring high school kids by night. Money was tight, but we managed. Ethan helped with chores, though sometimes I caught him crying quietly when he thought I wasn't looking. I never stopped reminding him, We're still a team, honey. You and me against the world. And for years, that's how it was. The happy years. Ethan was a bright kid, curious about everything. He loved fixing broken toys, mixing paint colors, and building tiny things out of cardboard. On weekends, we'd visit the park with a bag of breadcrumbs to feed ducks, and I'd bring a thermos of hot chocolate. He'd chatter about school, friends, and dreams of being an engineer. Every year on his birthday, we baked a cake together, a crooked, lopsided one because I was never much of a baker. But he'd always grin and say, "It's perfect, Mom." The smell of vanilla and laughter filled our tiny kitchen, and for a while, life felt right. When he won a science fair in 8th grade, he ran straight to me on the stage, hugging me in front of everyone. "We did it, Mom," he shouted, his voice full of joy. I remember that moment like a photograph, his cheeks flushed, his eyes sparkling, his arms around me. But as he grew older, things started changing subtly at first. He became quiet, withdrawn. High school friends, teenage moods, and the world beyond our small home started pulling him away. I thought it was normal. Kids grow up. But sometimes I caught a tone in his voice, a mix of irritation and embarrassment whenever I showed up at his school or tried to ask about his life. Still, he was a good kid. He made it to college on a scholarship. I was proud beyond words. I helped him move into his dorm, unpacking boxes while he scrolled on his phone. When I tried to hug him before leaving, he said softly, "Mom, not here, please." That stung, but I smiled anyway. "Okay, honey, I'll call you later." He didn't answer my calls much after that. The growing distance. College changed Ethan. He became sharper, busier, more polished. When I visited during his sophomore year, he seemed uncomfortable around me. He introduced me to his friends as Mrs. Harper, not Mom. It hurt, but I laughed it off. At dinner, he talked about his new life, projects, travel, professors, and I listened proudly. But every time I asked, "Do you need anything?" he'd sigh, "I'm fine, Mom. You don't have to worry so much." But worrying was all I knew. When he graduated, I cried during the ceremony. He hugged me, but it felt quick, almost polite. Afterward, I overheard him telling someone, "Yeah." My mom gets emotional about everything. He didn't mean it cruelly, I think, but it still broke something small inside me. He got a great job in Boston while I stayed in Ohio. I visited once, maybe twice a year. Each visit, his apartment grew more expensive, his clothes more stylish, and his tone more distant. I used to call every Sunday. After a while, he said, "Mom, text is easier." So I did. Sometimes he didn't reply. Then came Claire, the woman who would eventually become his wife. When he first told me about her, his voice lit up. "Mom, she's amazing, smart, funny, ambitious." I was genuinely happy for him. I sent her a small welcome gift, a handmade scarf and a note that said, "Can't wait to meet you, dear." When we finally met, she was polite but cool. She had that city confidence, every word measured, every smile calculated. She worked in marketing, and it showed. I could tell she didn't quite know what to make of me, a small-town teacher with plain clothes and simple talk. During dinner, I mentioned how Ethan used to be scared of thunderstorms, and she laughed lightly. "Oh, I can't imagine Ethan being scared of anything." Ethan smiled awkwardly, not looking at me. That night, I cried quietly in the guest room. Still, I told myself she'd come around. Maybe I just needed to give her time. The wedding. When Ethan proposed, he called me briefly. "Mom, I'm getting married." His voice was excited, but the next line came fast. "Claire's parents are handling most of the arrangements." At the wedding, I wore a pale blue dress I'd saved for years, thinking one day I'd wear it for something special. The ceremony was beautiful, flowers, music, laughter. But when I looked around, I realized I didn't quite belong. Claire's family was elegant, wealthy, sophisticated. I stood near the back, watching my son, my little boy smiling in his tuxedo, his arm around a woman who barely acknowledged me. When the photographer called for family photos, I stepped forward instinctively. But Claire's mother said, "Oh, we're just doing immediate family first." I froze. Ethan hesitated for a second, then looked away. The photographer clicked. That was the moment I knew. Something had shifted forever. Still, I smiled. I clapped. I hugged them both after the ceremony and whispered, "You look so happy, Ethan. I'm proud of you." He kissed my cheek, distracted, already looking past me. The present pain. After they married, things got worse. My calls went unanswered. My messages were seen but ignored. I tried to stay patient. I told myself he was busy adjusting to married life. One Thanksgiving, I waited for his call all day. When I finally dialed him, he said, "Mom, we're doing dinner with Claire's family this year. Maybe next time, okay?" I said it was fine, but after hanging up, I sat alone at the kitchen table with a single plate of stuffing and cranberry sauce, trying not to cry. Then came the text, the one that shattered what little hope I had left. "You're not my family. You can't come on our cruise." A single message, but it felt like a lifetime of rejection condensed into one line. They were going on a family vacation, a luxury cruise with Claire's parents, her brother, everyone except me. When I'd asked about it earlier, I only wanted to wish them a good trip. Maybe deep down, I hoped they'd invite me too. But that message made it clear. I wasn't part of that circle anymore. I sat in silence for a long time, my phone still glowing in the dark. The same phone I'd saved to buy him as a graduation gift years ago. It's strange how love can turn into distance so quietly. You don't even notice it happening, until one day it's too late. A small flashback. I close my eyes and picture Ethan as a little boy again. He's sitting on the couch in his pajamas, hair messy, waiting for me to come home from work. When I walk in, he runs to me, yelling, "Mom, you're home!" I drop my bag and scoop him up. His arms wrap around my neck. He smells like crayons and soap. We sit by the window with 2 mugs of cocoa, watching the rain fall outside. Thunder rumbles and he hides under my arm. "Don't worry, baby," I whisper. "It's just the sky talking." He giggles and says, "Then tell it to be quiet." I remember that laugh. It was my favorite sound in the world. Now every time it rains, I sit by the same window and imagine he's still that boy, safe, warm, and close to me. I whisper to the thunder again, but this time I say, "Bring him back to me." Love doesn't stop when someone pushes you away. It just sits quietly in the corner, waiting, hopping, remembering. And that's what I do, remember. Because even if Ethan forgets, even if he calls someone else Mom, I'll still be here, still his mother, still keeping that old promise I made the day he was born. You'll never be alone, Ethan, I promise. The days after Ethan's text blurred together. I went through the motions of life, making breakfast, watering the plants, folding laundry. But my heart was somewhere else, stuck on that single, cruel line. "You're not my family. You can't come on our cruise." I stared at it countless times, tracing the letters with trembling fingers, trying to understand how my only son could reject me so completely. I thought back to my own life, trying to find a reason. I had always been honest with Ethan, honest with everyone. I had loved him fiercely and openly. I never demanded more than love, and I never betrayed him. But life had other lessons, painful ones, that I had hoped to shield him from. For years, I had trusted my husband, Robert, Ethan's father, to be our rock. We were young, in love, and determined to build a life together. But as time passed, I began noticing little changes. Phone calls he quickly ended, late nights at work, disappearing money. I'd chalked it up to stress. I told myself he was providing for us, that his sacrifices were necessary. But the truth came out too late, and brutally. I remember the day clearly. Ethan was 8, playing in the living room with his blocks, laughing. I was in the kitchen, preparing dinner when Robert came home early. There was tension in the air, the kind you feel before a storm. I said, "Don't come home early," a woman's voice shouted. I froze. I had never heard her before. Then Robert slammed the door, and I saw it her. A woman I didn't know, standing there with a smirk, arms crossed. My heart stopped. Who is she?" I stammered. Robert's face hardened. "She's nobody you need to worry about." But worry was the only thing I could do. From that moment, the cracks widened. Arguments became fights. He hit me once, twice, the bruises I tried to hide from Ethan. I would put long sleeves on him in the summer, feign clumsiness, and pray he didn't notice the swelling on my arm. I told myself it was temporary, that I was safe once he left. Yet the pain wasn't just physical. It ate me alive. My own home became a place of fear. I would sleep on the couch at night, clutching the phone to call a friend if the blows started. I became invisible, a ghost in my own life. Ethan, though young, knew something was wrong. He would peek from behind the door, whispering, "Mom, are you okay?" And I would smile through the pain, whispering, "I'm fine, honey, go play." I wasn't fine, I was broken. Eventually, I met her properly. Her name was Vanessa. She wore expensive clothes and perfume that made the room ache with wealth I didn't have. She smiled at me once, the kind of smile that belonged on magazines, but it never reached her eyes. "You know, Robert has been very unhappy," she said, her voice soft but venomous. "You can't blame him for seeking happiness elsewhere." I felt my chest tighten. Happiness, he hits me, he hurts me. Vanessa shrugged. "Oh, everyone fights, don't exaggerate. You're lucky he even keeps you around. Some women don't get that much." I stared at her, rage bubbling beneath the fear. Rage I didn't know I had. "How dare you? You've ruined my life, my family. Do you even have a heart?" She smiled again, and it was like a blade. "I have what I want. You should try it sometime." From that day on, I understood the true face of betrayal. Robert wasn't the man I married. He was a coward and a predator, hiding behind a mask of charm while hurting the people who trusted him most. I tried to keep it all from Ethan, but some things slip through, even when you shield a child. He started acting out at school, his bright eyes clouded with confusion and anger he didn't understand. I tried to be strong, but the nights I cried in the dark after putting him to bed were many. I would press a damp towel to my bruises, whisper apologies, and pray that he would forgive me for not protecting him better. I carried that guilt into his adulthood, thinking maybe if I had done more, spoken up sooner, fought harder, he wouldn't have grown into someone so distant, so unrecognizable. And then came Claire. Claire's role in this pain cannot be overstated. She was not evil, perhaps, but she was cold and calculating. From the start, I felt her subtle attempts to push me away, to assert that Ethan's life with her would be their life, not mine. She criticized my cooking when we visited, saying, "This isn't what we usually eat." She suggested small changes to my home, my clothes, my habits. She told Ethan I was too much, too emotional, and a distraction. And slowly, I realized she was planting seeds in my son's heart, teaching him to view me not as his mother, but as a burden. I tried to ignore it, believing my son would always see the truth. But Claire's influence grew stronger every day, and I began to see the transformation. The boy who once hid under my arm during thunderstorms, who clung to me when he was scared, was now someone who could type a single cruel sentence and erase me from his world. "You're not my family. You can't come on our cruise." The night I read that text, I fell apart completely. I sat in the dark, my body shaking, tears streaming down my face, my phone burning against my palm. I screamed into the empty apartment, my voice bouncing off the walls, a sound I hadn't made in years. "Why, Ethan? Why would you say that to me?" I hit the couch, curled up in a ball, and for the first time I allowed myself to feel every ounce of anger, pain, and betrayal at once. I thought of Robert's cruelty, Vanessa's smirk, Claire's cold manipulation, and Ethan's rejection. Every memory stabbed at me like a knife, and I let the tears fall freely. I could feel the bruises on my arms, faded and lingering from years ago, as if my body remembered the violence that my heart tried to forget. Rage coiled inside me, bitter and sharp. How dare they all betray me? How dare they think they could erase the love I had poured into a life? I remembered nights when Ethan had cried for me, worried I would disappear forever. And now, he was pushing me away as if all those years of love meant nothing. My chest ached with grief and fury. I wanted to scream at Robert, though he had been gone for decades, and at Vanessa for her poisonous smile. I wanted to shake Claire until she understood what she had done. I wanted to demand my son look at me and remember who I was, who had sacrificed everything for him. But I couldn't. I could only sit there and feel the storm inside me, as violent as any hurricane outside my window. It's strange how betrayal sharpens your vision. I could see clearly now the villains in my life, not just Robert and Vanessa, but Claire, who had quietly poisoned my son's heart. I didn't hate Ethan. How could I? He was still my boy, my child, but the adults around him had twisted him into someone I barely recognized. Every cruel word from Claire, every manipulation, every calculated moment of distance made me hate her with a cold, steady fire. She had destroyed a relationship that had taken decades to build. She had taught my son to see me as an outsider, a shadow, a problem to be avoided. I hated the injustice of it. I hated the betrayal. I hated the pain they had caused, pain that no apology could erase. I hated how powerless I felt, sitting here in my apartment, unable to reach him, unable to make him remember the years of love, laughter, and struggle that bound us together. And yet, amid the rage, there was also clarity. Betrayal had been revealed in full, and I could no longer ignore it. I could no longer pretend that the cruel text, the cold shoulder, and the years of subtle undermining were misunderstandings. This was deliberate. This was calculated. This was betrayal. I wiped my tears and made a vow to myself, quiet but unwavering. I would not allow the villains in my life to define my worth. Robert had struck, Vanessa had taunted, Claire had manipulated, and Ethan had listened. But I could still reclaim my dignity. I could still live my life with strength and pride. I wouldn't let them have the satisfaction of seeing me broken forever. I wouldn't let their cruelty silence the mother who had loved fiercely, who had fought in every way she could to protect and nurture her child. The road ahead would not be easy. The betrayal had cut deep, leaving scars that would not fade. But I knew one thing: I would not disappear. I would not vanish from my own life. And one day, perhaps, Ethan would remember. Perhaps he would see the truth, and the villains would lose their power over him and over me. For now, I would mourn. I would rage, I would cry, and then slowly I would rise. Because even when betrayed, even when hurt, even when rejected by the very people you love most, a mother's love cannot be destroyed. And I would make sure they all understood that. After days of sitting in the dark, staring at Ethan's cruel text over and over, I realized that crying and anger would not change anything. If I wanted my son to see the truth, if I wanted the people who had betrayed me to face what they had done, I would need proof. Cold, undeniable proof. The first step was to gather evidence. I started with small things: photos, messages, small documents that could show the pattern of manipulation and cruelty that Claire had woven around Ethan, and the long-hidden betrayals from Robert's past. I remembered the letters I had kept from friends who had warned me about Robert's mistress, the medical reports from the bruises I had tried to hide, and the old emails from Vanessa boasting about her influence. It felt strange, almost like preparing for a war. But I knew that without evidence, my voice alone would not be enough. I needed allies, people who could support me, who would see the truth and help me stand firm. I thought of Mrs. Thompson, my next-door neighbor and longtime friend. She had seen more of my life than most people. She had noticed the bruises Robert left behind, had comforted me during sleepless nights, and had listened patiently to Ethan's occasional complaints about family drama. I invited her over, my hands shaking as I explained everything. The text, Claire's manipulation, Robert's betrayal, Vanessa's smirk that still haunted me. She didn't interrupt or judge. She just held my hand and said, "Linda, we'll make sure he sees what you've seen. We'll help you gather the truth." That simple promise gave me hope. Next, I called Mr. Patel, a family lawyer I had met years ago when dealing with small inheritance matters. I didn't tell him I wanted revenge, only that I needed advice about protecting myself and establishing the truth of my claims. He was calm, professional, and surprisingly attentive. "If you want to make your case to your son, or even protect your own rights in this situation, documentation is key," he explained. "Messages, emails, witnesses, everything counts. And timing matters. Don't rush, it has to be methodical." I listened carefully, taking notes. It felt good to have a plan, to have someone who could turn my raw grief into a structured path forward. I also confided in Grandma Ruth, Ethan's grandmother on Robert's side. She had passed a more distant judgment on me in the past, siding occasionally with Robert, but she had always had a soft spot for Ethan and me. When I called her and told her the truth about Claire's behavior, she gasped but then said firmly, "Linda, I've seen too many children swept away by lies. I will stand with you. Ethan needs to remember the mother who raised him." Her words stirred something inside me, a reminder that I was not alone. That no matter how cruel the world became, there were people who still saw the truth. I began spending hours going through old boxes, emails, and messages. I printed screenshots of Claire's texts, noting the subtle ways she criticized me to Ethan. I highlighted emails Vanessa had sent to friends, mocking my lifestyle and encouraging Robert to treat me as less than. I pulled together old medical records, photographs, and even journal entries from when I tried to hide the bruises from Ethan. It wasn't easy. The memories were painful. Every photo of Ethan laughing with Claire while ignoring me made my chest ache. But I told myself, this wasn't for revenge. This was for truth. This was to remind my son of the mother who loved him unconditionally, despite every obstacle. With the evidence in hand, I started to plan. I didn't want a messy confrontation filled with yelling and hurt. I wanted something he could not ignore, a moment that combined truth, clarity, and undeniable proof. I imagined sitting across from Ethan, the proof laid out between us, texts, emails, photographs, and testimony from witnesses. Mrs. Thompson could vouch for what she had seen. Grandma Ruth could speak to years of love and sacrifice, and Mr. Patel could explain the patterns of manipulation. I started drafting letters in my mind, carefully choosing words that were firm but not cruel. I wanted Ethan to see the full picture, the years of betrayal, the manipulation, and the love he had pushed away. I also thought about timing. I knew they were planning another trip soon, a family gathering that excluded me. If I could arrange to be present with the evidence, I could finally show Ethan the truth before Claire's influence silenced it again. Each meeting with my allies strengthened my resolve. Mrs. Thompson volunteered to quietly collect additional witness statements from people who had seen Claire's subtle manipulations at parties and dinners. Grandma Ruth dug out old photographs and keepsakes that reminded Ethan of the happy years with me. Mr. Patel reviewed every message and document, helping me organize them into a clear timeline. Even the small acts gave me courage. Mrs. Thompson brought me tea and listened as I read through texts aloud, correcting me when I got choked up. Grandma Ruth reminded me of Ethan's laughter as a child, encouraging me to focus on the love that had built our bond. Mr. Patel calmly guided me on what would matter most to Ethan, explaining how even small details could make a difference in showing him the truth. Every day, I felt stronger. The storm of grief and rage inside me began to turn into purpose. This wasn't just about confronting Claire or showing my son the truth. It was about reclaiming my dignity. I wasn't a powerless mother anymore. I was a woman with allies, evidence, and a plan. I mapped out how to approach the confrontation carefully, envisioning each step. I practiced staying calm, even when my heart wanted to scream. I wrote letters to Ethan that I didn't intend to send immediately, using them as practice to articulate my thoughts clearly. I reviewed every photograph and message, making sure nothing was ambiguous. And through it all, I reminded myself of my ultimate goal: to reconnect with Ethan, to help him see the truth, and to show him the love he had once cherished. By the end of the week, the groundwork was laid. I had witnesses, documents, and a plan. I had allies who would stand with me. Most importantly, I had regained my strength, the quiet, steady power of a mother who refused to be erased. The rising action was complete. The pieces were in place. Now it was only a matter of when I would present the truth, and when that day came, nothing would be able to stop it. Just when I thought I had begun to gather the pieces of truth, the storm struck again. But this time, it wasn't just emotional. It was calculated, cold, and relentless. Claire had realized I was preparing something, and she wasn't going to let me succeed quietly. It started with subtle attacks. I noticed social media posts, pictures of Ethan and Claire smiling on vacations, captions like, "Family time is sacred. Some people just don't belong." I knew immediately the implication was directed at me. Comments from friends and distant relatives followed, agreeing with them, mocking me quietly. Maybe it's better you stay home, Linda, or some parents need to know their place. The whispers in the neighborhood began next. Mrs. Thompson called me one afternoon, her voice tight. Linda, I think some people are talking. They're questioning why you're interfering. They say it. Obsessive, that maybe you're overstepping. My chest tightened. Even allies I trusted were starting to doubt me because of Claire's manipulation. Then came the direct threats. I received an anonymous letter slipped under my door. Stop this now. Leave Ethan alone or you'll regret it. You have no place in his life. My hands shook as I held it. I recognized the handwriting. It wasn't entirely unfamiliar. Claire wanted me afraid. She wanted me silent. I tried to tell Ethan directly, hoping he would listen. I sent a careful, measured text. Ethan, I have evidence that shows the truth. I just want you to see it and understand. Please don't ignore me. The reply came almost immediately, sharp and cold. Mom, stop harassing me. You're causing problems. I told you you're not my family. I felt my stomach drop. Not only was she turning my son against me, she was twisting him into her weapon. Every word he typed felt like a hammer, striking deep into the wound of years of rejection. Even the legal side of things was under attack. Mr. Patel warned me that Claire had been calling his office anonymously, making false claims that I was harassing her family and threatening her husband. Suddenly, the documents I had so carefully gathered could be twisted to make me look guilty. I tried to confide in Grandma Ruth, hoping her influence could balance the scales, but even she was cautious. Linda, maybe don't push too hard, she warned. Some people are saying you're being dramatic. You have to be careful with how you present this. It felt like the walls were closing in. Everywhere I turned, I was facing manipulation and lies. My neighbors avoided eye contact. Emails I sent to friends went unanswered. Even Mrs. Thompson hesitated to get involved too openly, fearing she'd be dragged into Claire's web. And then came the most personal strike. I received a photo in the mail, a picture of Ethan, smiling next to Claire, with her arm wrapped around him protectively. Someone had clearly watched their interactions and sent it to me, a silent reminder. I was excluded, powerless, unworthy of even seeing the life my son had built. I cried for hours, the phone slipping from my hand. Rage, grief, and fear mixed into a storm I couldn't calm. For the first time, I wondered if I had underestimated Claire's cunning. She wasn't just blocking me. She was shaping everyone around Ethan to believe my pain was unjustified. I thought of the letter, the social whispers, the legal threats, the rejection from my own son. Every day, the pressure grew. The weight of society, family, and my own emotions pressed down on me like a tidal wave. I felt isolated, humiliated, and cornered. Yet beneath the fear, something hardened inside me. I realized that Claire's attacks, though cruel, confirmed one thing: I was on the right path. If she was this desperate to stop me, it meant the truth was powerful enough to scare her. So I took a deep breath, wiped my tears, and told myself, they can try to break me. They can manipulate, threaten, and isolate me, but I will not stop. I will not let them erase the mother who raised her son with love and sacrifice. The battle was escalating. The villain was striking harder. The world seemed to turn against me, but I was preparing to strike back harder still. Just when I felt completely cornered, a small, unexpected spark appeared, a new ally who could shift everything. Her name was Vanessa, the woman who had once been Robert's mistress, the source of so much pain in my life years ago. I never imagined she could be on my side, but life has a strange way of turning enemies into allies. It started with a phone call. I was sitting by the window, staring at the rain, when the number flashed on my screen. Hesitant, I answered. Linda, it's Vanessa, the voice said. My heart jumped. I didn't know if I should hang up or listen. I know this sounds strange, she continued, but I want to help. I've seen what Claire is doing to Ethan and you. She's manipulating him, turning everyone against you. I can provide proof. Emails, messages, things she doesn't want anyone to see. I felt my hands tremble. Could it be true? Could this woman, who had caused me so much heartbreak, now be the key to helping me? Yes, I'll meet you, I whispered. I need help. We met in a quiet cafe, far from prying eyes. She looked nervous but determined. I've regretted what I did to you for years, she said. I saw how Robert treated you. I never realized how much damage it caused. And now, Claire, she's doing the same thing, twisting Ethan against you, isolating you, lying to everyone. You deserve a chance to show him the truth. Vanessa handed me a folder of printed messages, screenshots, and emails, proof that Claire had been manipulating Ethan, convincing him that his mother was a problem, a burden, someone to avoid. She had kept logs of Claire's lies, even proof of Claire arranging social situations to humiliate me in front of others. For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope lit inside me. The folder in my hands was more than evidence. It was a weapon, a bridge back to my son. Why are you helping me? I asked, still wary. Vanessa hesitated, then said softly, because it's the right thing. I can't undo my past mistakes, but I can help fix this one. I didn't know whether to cry or hug her. Relief washed over me like a wave. I felt less alone. For the first time in months, I believed I could fight back. With Vanessa's help, I started organizing the evidence. Screenshots, emails, and witness statements from Mrs. Thompson and Grandma Ruth could all be combined into a clear picture. Now, I didn't just have my memories and pain. I had proof that could cut through Claire's lies and show Ethan the reality. We planned carefully. Vanessa suggested subtle ways to approach Ethan without pushing him too far too fast, ways to show him the proof without confrontation turning into an argument. She reminded me, he's your son. He needs to remember who you really are. For the first time in months, I slept that night without crying. For the first time, I felt strategically alive, armed with evidence and a new ally I hadn't expected. The tide was turning. The villain's control was weakening. And for the first time, I could see a path forward, a way to reclaim my son and reveal the truth. A small ray of hope had entered my stormy world. And with it, I knew the next move would change everything. The day finally arrived. I sat in the small conference room of Mr. Patel's office, my hands gripping the folder of evidence so tightly they ached. Vanessa, Mrs. Thompson, and Grandma Ruth were with me, each offering quiet reassurance. The air felt electric, tense, charged like the moment before a storm breaks. Across the table sat Claire and Ethan. Claire's usual confidence radiated from her, her smile tight and calculating. Ethan looked uneasy, glancing between us, unsure how to react. For weeks, she had controlled the narrative, turning him against me, but now the truth was about to hit like a hammer. Mr. Patel began methodically, presenting the evidence. Screenshots of Claire's manipulative texts, emails showing her lies and schemes, witness statements confirming how she had isolated me. Vanessa spoke next, her voice calm but firm, revealing the subtle ways Claire had undermined our relationship over the years. Mrs. Thompson shared first-hand accounts of events Claire had twisted, and Grandma Ruth displayed old photos and keepsakes showing the bond Ethan and I had shared since childhood. Claire's face changed slowly, from irritation to disbelief, then pure, unmasked panic. Her smugness, her aura of control, cracked. She tried to interrupt, tried to dismiss the evidence as exaggerations or misinterpretations, but each attempt was countered with undeniable proof. Every lie she had spun was exposed. Ethan's eyes widened as he scanned the documents. I saw confusion, then dawning horror, and finally a flicker of recognition. The little boy who had once clung to me during thunderstorms began to return, if only faintly. When Mr. Patel formally concluded, he looked at Ethan and Claire and said, "The facts are clear. The attempts to manipulate and isolate have been documented thoroughly. Any continued exclusion or harassment cannot be justified." Claire's arrogance crumbled completely. Her words faltered, her defenses shattered. She realized she had lost control over the narrative she had so carefully constructed. And then Ethan spoke, his voice soft, hesitant, but real. "Mom, I didn't know. I didn't understand." Tears welled in my eyes, but they were not of despair. They were of relief, of vindication. I reached out, and he took my hand, hesitating, then squeezing it tightly. Justice had been delivered, not through anger, but through truth. The villain's control was broken, and I, a mother who had suffered betrayal, humiliation, and rejection, had reclaimed my place in my son's life. For the first time in months, I felt peace. I had survived, I had fought, and I had finally won. The weeks after the confrontation were quiet, almost surreal. Ethan slowly began reaching out more often, his messages tinged with hesitation and remorse. Our conversations were awkward at first, but each one brought us closer. The bond we thought was lost was beginning to heal. I spent more time with Mrs. Thompson and Grandma Ruth, laughing over tea, sharing stories, and realizing how much support I had around me. Even Vanessa remained a quiet ally, reminding me that people can change, and sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. I started to rebuild my life too. I joined a local community book club, volunteered at the library, and began painting again, simple joys I had abandoned during years of fear and isolation. Each small step was a victory, a reminder that I could reclaim my world and my happiness. One afternoon, as I walked through the park where I had taken Ethan as a child, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. I had survived betrayal, cruelty, and rejection. I had stood firm when others doubted me. And most importantly, I had reclaimed my son's love and respect. I realized something important. This victory was not just mine. It belonged to everyone who suffers in silence, who is pushed aside or silenced by cruelty, manipulation, or fear. If I could fight through it, so could they. Looking at Ethan, now laughing and sharing stories again, I whispered to myself, "This is not just my victory. It's for everyone who has ever been made to feel invisible. Love, patience, and truth can endure anything." And with that, I stepped forward into a new chapter of life, stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace the future with hope and courage. The storm had passed, and finally, the sun was shining.